When we only focus on the extremists and the threat that they pose, what we actually do is we end up lumping moderates into the same category as the extremists, and we create a bigger job for ourselves. We create a monolithic enemy that in reality has very different ambitions, aims, and goals. And so if we were to break out of that monolithic enemy, the moderates with whom we can work, with whom we do share values, and with whom there is common ground, then we actually deflate that enemy and we enlist their help in the fight against extremism. So I think that that's the more effective approach in marginalizing extremists, is to engage that moderate middle ground. And I know that they exist because I've spent the past 10 years in the region, and there are the most incredible trends of change going on, the most amazing moderates, the most amazing initiatives, and it's just that Americans don't know about it. So we only picture this region as terrorists, frankly, as radical extremists, and that's not an accurate picture.
So the Institute's working on getting the correct information about what's happening, as well as identifying the moderates, and then
exactly.
What does the Institute correspond with them? What happens?
Well, one of the ways we're doing that is by bringing those moderates, a lot of those top leaders, to the U.S. to show Americans this fuller picture, and that is happening next month, and that's part of our conference that we're putting on, Our World Beyond 9/11, happening right here at Principia College. So this is part of our effort. This is a direct response to the goal of engaging this moderate middle ground, is by bringing these disparate moderates from all over the region and key policymakers and journalists and influential thinkers in the U.S. and bringing them together for a summit.
So tell us more about the summit, and what are you expecting from that? How is it structured? What's going to happen?
Yeah. So the theme of the summit is Einstein's idea that problems cannot be solved at the same level of thinking that created them, which I just think is a fabulous idea. And it actually goes back to what I was saying earlier, that the focus of our efforts to date has solely been on extremists. And in doing that, perhaps we have not been as effective in our results as we would like to be now 10 years out. So how can the next 10 years be different? And so maybe that means and requires taking a different approach, which to us we're defining as engaging that moderate middle ground. But the genesis of the conference, which I'd love to share, came about a couple years ago. I was thinking, gosh, it's only 2 years until the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. I can't believe it's been that long, but also just thinking how important it would be to mark that 10-year passage. It's just a good time to take stock of, where have we come from, what's happened, what's transpired in the past 10 years, and where do we go from here. So I was thinking about what led to 9/11 itself, and I was picturing Osama bin Laden sitting around, in probably a lounge type area with his cronies, and he brings up the question, hey, fellow terrorists, how can we have the biggest impact on the world for evil, the evildoers? And look at what transpired. I mean, Al-Qaeda was not a small group, and he had a very small, close-knit group of his A-team. And I imagined them coming up, hatching this creative, fantastic plan that was just, no one saw it coming, and it was just so outrageous. And then the impact that had and the further consequences and the ripple effect, it was just huge. I thought, what if we gathered the anti-terrorists in a room? The world's leading visionaries, the people who have figured out Einstein's quote that it does take a different way of thinking, and they're doing it, and they have a new model. What if we gathered them together in a room with the question, how can we have the biggest impact on the world for good? And so that was really the launching of this idea to hold the summit, because the people I've been encountering the past decade are, on their own, they're incredible luminaries, and they're effecting so much good and so much change in their different communities. But to be able to bring them together for a conversation that really takes us to the next level and really asks the question, how can the next 10 years be different? And how can a small group of people who do have a new model how can we have an impact on the world for good? So the way the summit is going to work is that there are 3 sessions. So it's 2 days, 3 sessions. And the sessions are inform, inspire, and transform. And the inform session is to help participants and viewers, it will all be online and streamed, to think about the past 10 years and to get smart on the issues. Let's review what's happened the past 10 years on Iraq, on ISPAL, on terrorism, on national security interests, on religious fundamentalism. Let's review that and look at the underlying ways of thinking or the underlying modes of those specific challenges. And then the Inspire session is hearing from these visionaries to open up our thought to what's possible. Here we have all these challenges, and yet there's a different way of doing things that these people can present and are doing to show us that this is already happening in our midst, and all we need to do is expand on these efforts and support these efforts. And then the Transform session is about bringing all of these ideas home. So how can each participant in the audience be equipped with the tools and the skills to become a visionary themselves, to become a peacemaker themselves? And so that is, it's really trying to bring us full circle to the inform, and that's also part of our Euphrates mission. It's all about how do we create this change. It's all about inform, inspire, and then transform. And so we're modeling that in the 2 days of the conference.